Welcome to AMP. My name's Richard Conway and this is the platform for age group multisport athletes to showcase their journeys. Hiya, and thank you for joining us on AMP, the Age Group Multisport podcast. And we're on episode 24. On this episode, we go international once more, and we're joined by Germany's Stephan Leuendorf. Stephan has a long history of cycling in various forms, from road racing, cyclocross, and mainly track, where he was the 4,000 metre pursuit Berlin state champion. So with a good pedigree of cycling, Stephan turned to triathlon round about 1993, and his first Ironman was Ironman Roth in 1997. He also qualified and finished Kona Ironman in 2010. He's a father of two boys and a husband, and his wife is also a triathlete and a 3 times Ironman Kona finisher. Stephan mainly concentrates now on duathlon due to time constraints, and he usually gets his training in going to and from work. However, he's now working from home like many of us. He was national duathlon champion in 2014. He got a silver in 2015 on the long course, and a silver in 2018 and a bronze in 2019. And he's now searching for gold. So that's Stephan, and that'll be coming up shortly. Before that, we've got Dave Cripps from TriTenacious and his second part of strength and conditioning, giving us his hints and tips. And Dave delves into sport-specific exercises and also the negative impact doing exercises the wrong way can have, and how much is necessary, how much we actually need to do as triathletes. So that's all coming up. Hope you enjoy it. Lately, we've had a few more races cancelled, unfortunately, or moved back to later on in the year. One of those being Clumber Park, and that's been cancelled for this year. The event management team who run that have pulled out. So British Tri are looking for a new venue so they can hold qualification races for the Duathlon 2022 season in age group. So yeah, we'll just watch this space. On a personal note, I've had my first vaccination. The only side effect I felt was a dead arm a day or two later, which was like somebody just punched you in the upper arm. But other than that, I felt great, felt fine. Didn't affect me, so glad to have had that. And I've got the next one in April, and then we'll be fully vaccinated up. So if we can travel, then we'll be able to do so. So that was good. Had a bit of an easy week last week, and this week did a ramp test on Zwift. Didn't go so well. Lost even more FTP wattage. I'm going to go back to doing the 20-minute test and see how that fares. Other than that, keeping the consistency going, keep training. I've got another 5k test to do. Got a bit of a niggle on the hamstring, so I'm just taking it easy. I think that's about it for now. So we shall move on to our first guest. Second part, as I said, of Dave Cripps from TriTenacious, and hope you enjoy it. See you on the other side. And again, it's like it depends, but how much of strength and conditioning should we do per week?
So I think one of the challenges that fits in with time is that most strength and conditioning originally originated from strength and power sports, particularly like rugby, really good example. Those guys have more time to do this type of work potentially, and it's naturally more relatable to them. When I look at multi-sport athlete, I know myself, my training, all my coaching work, I've got a family, 3 kids and a wife. Yeah. It's a hell of a lot to juggle before you even think about adding on a 4th discipline. But I think a lot of the time, because people look at information from other sports, or they look at information from coaches who are mainly used to working in other sports, they believe the amount of training that they have to do with strength and conditioning is actually a lot more than they actually need to. So we always say that the quality of the training completely surpasses the quantity of it. So if we take a typical ballpark figure of people who we work with in multi-sport, for example, they might do anywhere between 50 to 80 minutes of strength and conditioning a week. However, that won't necessarily be one session or two big sessions. There's various different ways, and I'm more than happy to talk about them in a moment, that we can divide that up because of actually physically how we're training the body. So it's quite different to endurance, where you almost have to block your training because creating fatigue is really important. Strength and conditioning for endurance sports is actually very different. So we can actually be a lot more versatile with that kind of 50 to 80 minutes a week, how we use it over the week. And actually, we can incorporate that into other things. So if you're doing a main strength session a week, which is maybe 40 minutes, the remainder that you need to do can actually just be included in warm-ups that precede your swim, your bike and your run, which you probably would have already done. But by doing more focused work, you're not only ticking off a warm-up box, but you're ticking off the extra strength and conditioning work to give the improvements that we want. So yeah, typically we'd say 50 to 80 minutes a week is it's enough. We know that. We see improvements through, for example, minute mile running pace, power output measurements if we're looking on the bike. So it does work, but the key is it's very focused. We're not, when you know every exercise its purpose, when you know how every rep will benefit that athlete, you can be very, very effective because the quality is right up there. Whereas if you're not using exercises because you don't know how they will benefit things, we call it the kitchen sink approach. We'll throw everything at it. So only 50% of it might stick. So again, the quality of it will be low, and usually you'll feel like you have to do more than you actually have.
If you were to go in and do a 45-minute workout twice a week, what would that entail for covering the swim and the bike and the run part of the strength?
Well, the first thing I'd say about it, it's very rare that we'd have anybody who would do two big 45-minute sessions. Right. There are some, but for most people involved in multi-sports, that's practically a little bit challenging. So what we'll typically do, we'll have one big main focus strength session, which could be anywhere between, again, 45 minutes. And then the rest of the work that we pick up is where we'll drop that into maybe warm-ups before swim, bike and run, and we can almost drip feed that in. So all of that we can fit together in a bit of a more a concise way, which they know they can do. So in terms of content, so if we're looking at movements or exercises to tick off all the different things that we can actually do, the first thing is like what actually underpins performance in swim, bike and run. Otherwise, it's kind of just guesswork. So if we look at bike and run to start with as an example, we know that if we can improve strength as our hips and our knees extend, so basically if you imagine as if you've got a bent leg, as you push it down to the floor, your hip and your knee extends. That's what we mean by that. We know that if we develop strength during that movement, that's going to transfer fundamentally pretty damn well to swimming and cycling. Now there is some more detail to this about the speed that you do that and the angles. That's kind of more icing on the cake stuff. I think the biggest thing to realise first of all is that you're using exercise that allow our hip and our knee to extend because they are the primary functions that provide power and propulsion when we cycle and when we run. Even then when we look to swimming, our hip extensors, so basically like our glute muscles, big muscles in our buttocks, they play a big part in kicking. And obviously, what's the big thing we tell when we're swimming? Don't kick from your knee, kick from your hip. It's your gluteal muscles that do that. When we're looking at swimming as well, if you compare, like we said, with running and cycling, it being about extending your hip and your knee, with swimming, the thing we're looking at, it's about the ability, if you manage to bring and pull through the water, so what we call flexing through the shoulder, it's the ability to have strength during that. So we use exercises predominantly, which we call like vertical pulling movements. So if you imagine like a pull-up, the pull-up's a good example. You're starting in that position there and you're pulling yourself up. Main reason, again, that's using muscles that essentially provide propulsion when we swim. So latissimus dorsi, your lat muscles, they're the big powerhouses, and funny enough, they're the ones that we can develop strength and power best with when we're doing strength work. So again, that's another reason why that would be another block. So as an example, even though I've just spoken about swim, bike and run, All I've said is just exercises which extend your hip and your knee, and exercises which basically just pull your arm down to your side, if you like.
Yeah.
It would be really easy for me to on the face be said, well, we need exercises for your glute muscles, your hamstring muscles, to bend your elbow, to extend your elbow, triceps. When we're combining it into these what we call compound movements, it makes it much more easier, not only to train, but for people to actually understand how they can apply it into their training.
Yeah.
And then the final bit on that, again, if we're looking at kind of, I suppose, like injury prevention, I know it's not a very sexy word, it's pretty boring, but I think particularly as we get a bit more grey in the hair, we can be more aware of it. We always say in injury prevention is that it's not about that on the face of it, it's about allowing your body to be more robust so you can spend more time doing what you love, which is swim, bike and run, or it might just be bike and run, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And if we're doing strength training the right way, we know that can happen without fail. So within those strength sessions that we just spoke about, that's sometimes where some of these more accessory exercises we use to address certain things. So if we've got somebody who does running, for example, that's where maybe we do some isolated calf work with them, particularly if they've got a history of calf strains or particularly Achilles problems.
Yeah.
Most Achilles problems actually occur mainly because there's a weakness in the muscle that attaches to it, so your calf muscles. We can also then cut common areas, what would usually be called core, so core strength. We know that plays a big role in lower back pain from cycling, in terms of overstriding, so bad mechanics for running, in terms of back pain, so using your back muscles as opposed to your buttock muscles when you're kicking your swim. Again, that's another area that sometimes again we can cover within our strength training programs each week. So without, I think, going too much more deeper than that, for even more, fundamentally, if we're ticking those boxes, we're going to have a pretty well-rounded strength and conditioning program. Obviously, though, the specifics of how you fit that to yourself as an individual, that's kind of the next step. But fundamentally, I think those things hold true for most people involved in multi-sports.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that's, picking out there, I mean, you've hit sort of like the basics and kept it simple. Because I guess people who haven't done much strength training, it's like we've said earlier, it's it's such a big topic. Where do we start? And you've just said you didn't say in so many words, but if you're looking at a squat, you're looking at a pull up. You know what I mean? Those are a couple of exercises that people could, people who have not done it before could start off on. So yeah, I mean that's really really good information.
One thing that just jumps out on that, and again, I think that key thing that you said about making things understandable. It's like when we talk about injury prevention, again, there's a really good stat on this. In Australia, over 5 years, they looked at athletes and like illness and injury and what prevented them from having consistency with their training. They essentially found that the athletes who were able to complete more than 80% of their training because they were less injured and less ill, were around 7 times more likely to achieve goals that they'd set on out for their training over a period. So again, we know if you can make you more durable to complete your training sessions, you're going to be a hell of a lot better. But when we're talking about things like, let's say, back, so again, I've had a bad back, so I know what it's like as well, as most of us have as well. It's really easy to start to go really deep and talk about things in such detail that people are lost. Essentially, when we're talking about the spine and not getting an injury, I often say, if you imagine a radio mast, the radio mast has big metal wires off it, and the metal wires are there to support it so it doesn't get blown over in the wind, to make it stable. Now, if you look at your spine, the reason your spine gets injured is because it hasn't got enough stability, and that's because you haven't got strength in the muscles that provide the stability. So when we get stronger for our core and our hips, all we're doing essentially is getting those metal wires stronger and tighter to be able to support our spine. So again, that's a nice little cool way, and again, I know it's using analogies, and some people hate analogies, but it's a great way for people to be able to understand something that we could go really complex on, but understanding it in a way that they can grasp, and then they can see, oh, okay, I get that. I can see now the value in work.
I think the other value, especially coming from an age group point of view, where we start from 18 all the way up to till you're 80, 90, whatever. I've seen the whole range, and as we get older into our 40s and 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Strength is so important, so we don't lose, because you're losing your muscles, aren't you, as you get older. If you don't use them, you lose them. That's the saying, isn't it? It's really important from that aspect as well as we get older. And even if we weren't multi-sport athletes, doing those exercises is crucial and critical for decent longevity.
Yeah, I suppose, unfortunately, most of us probably come to that understanding having sustained a few injuries or a bad one. So it's almost like you have to go sometimes through the stress or frustration of an injury to start to actually realise some of the things you have to do. But again, I do think it boils a lot down to, even then, it can be very difficult sometimes for multi-sport athletes to understand or incorporate strength and conditioning work, proper strength and conditioning work, because it's still, how do I do it? How do I not risk getting injured more? How do I fit it into my schedule? And also just like classic myths like around, am I going to start to put on muscle? Again, one of the things we say with strength training is the amount of strength training that a triathlete will typically be able to do is very limited anyway. But the way that you use strength training in no way actually promotes the things that cause increases in muscle mass. Ironically, some of the common errors, which I'm more than happy to talk about in a bit with how strength training is typically done in the endurance world, actually is more likely to promote muscle gain than the actual approaches that you do to apply it properly that actually won't do that. So I'm more than happy to talk about that in a bit. But we usually finally get to that point, don't we, when we've had a few muscle strains or a few back spasms, and we've had that frustration point. Yeah,
and it does help. I've been doing I've weight trained in one guise or another throughout my life, and I've got my garage. We've just moved house, and I've got my garage set up now with weights and stuff in there, and I've looked at your ebook, which we can talk about a little bit later. I looked at that, downloaded it, and I actually had a go at that on when was that? On Tuesday, just to go through the different exercises. And for me, that was a total different way of attacking it, because obviously I'm coming from normally pull-ups, squats, deadlifts, bit of bench press, that sort of those core strength workouts. And then when you look at what you've put together, it's like, oh, right, okay, yeah, and I can see the benefits to probably both. What do you think of what I've just said about what I was doing there versus what you've structured in that ebook?
Well, I think the exercises you mentioned, there's absolutely nothing wrong with them, and they're exercises, most of those that we will utilise at some stage with pretty much most multi-sport athletes. I think the ebook's a really good example, actually, tying back to a question we spoke about a little bit earlier on, kind of fundamentally, what do I do? Yeah. And the exercises that we put in there are ones which allow people, regardless of ability, because obviously you can load them accordingly based on your levels of strength, but fundamentally to start to make sure that they're training the right muscles during the right movements. Because what we often find is a big limiting factor for, and this is true, and I've come to a conclusion as to think why this is true, there's no science on it, but technique when it comes to endurance athletes, and I include myself in this, we're not used to, apart from swimming, we're not used to having to think about technique too much. So like when we go cycling, running, our legs are moving so quickly, we can't focus in deep detail on like every pedal, or every foot strike, and therefore we just almost go into that kind of out-of-body state, which is great because it's what can allow us to do what we do, and that's what we enjoy doing as well. It can be a mental escape. With strength training, it's imperative to load the right muscles and to reinforce the right movements. And by that, what I mean is a good movement should have your joints aligning properly. Great example is if somebody's doing a squat and the knees go inwards, it's not only the fact that the movement isn't right, we're not reinforcing movements really important for, say, good running mechanics, but we know we're not training in the right muscles, because the glute muscles should push your knees outwards. If your knees are going in, we know we're not training the right muscles. But a lot of the time, therefore, technique will be compromised because we go into strength training thinking, right, we're going to bang it out, smash, 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 smash. And it means that what you get from the session, the stimulus in the body, is far less greater than actually if we go into that session thinking of it more like a swim session. So I say like with swimming, you never think, right, I'm just going to smash out a thousand metres. Some people might, but particularly if you're like me, when you're not naturally a good swimmer, you've got that, you're thinking about your body rotation, you think about how your hands enter in the water, because you know that to be able to do as best as you can, it's not just about thrashing it out, it's about the technique of what you're doing. And strength training is really important with that. So the exercises that you outlined in the ebook, they're exercises that we know technically start to get people reinforcing the right things, because a lot of the time, even if they've done some of the more advanced exercises before, they're not actually reinforcing the right techniques, training the right muscles, and therefore the gains that they can get are a lot more limited. Whereas if we start them off with exercises that, regardless of their ability or strength, it's very hard for them to get technically wrong. We've almost then got that foundation that we can build from. So then as we go into some of those more advanced exercises, you mentioned things like squats, variations of deadlifts, we've now got the technique and we've now got the strength in the right areas to make much more better use. So every rep of a deadlift will now be a lot more than it would have been before we'd almost built that foundation with those other strength exercises as well.
Well, thanks once again, Dave, for those great hints and tips, especially the one there right at the end, where it gives us food for thought about our technique when strength training, because I think that's totally accurate, that we really don't give much thought to the technique. We just go in there and I can only speak for myself, I suppose, just go in there and basically just thrash it out. So yeah, wise words and food for thought, so thank you for that. Right, now the main event. Next up is Stephan Leuendorf. Hope you enjoy this one, and I'll see you on the other side.
Okay, great.
So, how are you?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, well, I'm fine actually. So, with this lockdown and it's home office, so you got the big one who's just starting up back school again, and he's 7 and turning 8, and the small one turning 4 now, and there's no daycare yet. So that's a little bit of a stress factor, but overall, you say I must not complain, right? Everyone's healthy so far, and yeah, I'm things are all right considering all those circumstances.
So, what do you do for a living, Stefan?
Yeah, it's Stefan. Yeah, well, I am a solution architect in a big German school book publisher. And well, right now actually we are in high demand because I'm responsible for the parts of the digital learning experience, me and my team. So that's what we are trying to make possible for, yeah, almost everyone right now who is forced due to lockdown to study from home and to teach from home. Yeah, so this is what I try to do whilst homeschooling myself.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's nice to be able to give a little bit back at this time, to try and help in some way.
Yeah, for sure. So that's very fulfilling rather than just only doing something which is for entertainment or just to make more money. This is something that's really worthwhile and gives a benefit, and uh, to not only myself but everyone else around me. So especially when it comes to teaching and learning, that's something which is also an investment for the future, and especially in challenging times like this. So it's very fulfilling.
Fulfilling and worthwhile, isn't it? So you're working from home, I take it, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So, yeah, I mean, how is it in Germany? Are you in lockdown? I mean, we're back into lockdown, and we've got Boris is telling us today what the next stage is. So what is it like for you over there?
Yeah, so actually very similar here. So this is lockdown, and it started off as a lockdown light, and now we're back in full swing of doing, well, nothing in terms of going outside or continuing a normal life. But I think we're all in this together, and we're trying to contain it locally, every country for itself. But at the end of the day, the solution, I think, is only about goes through vaccinations and keeping distance and hoping that the mutations don't fan out as they are predicted to. Well, but I'm not a medic, so I have no expertise whatsoever. Just I'm dealing as everyone else is with this times, or at least try to deal with it, and hoping for the best. And luckily, everyone around me is still healthy, and I just hope it continues to stay like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what's going to happen, in the coming months, whether we're going to have another year like last year, because things seem to be moving backwards. They just put Roth back, I think, till the end of the year, haven't they?
Yeah, so to be honest, I think I nearly forgot how it is to not be in lockdown. But from a sporting perspective or events perspective, yes, I think Roth has been pushed out to September, and other big events will follow. And I don't see any major events happening until fall next year, because I don't know if this is a very good idea to invite half of the world, or at least half of Europe, to one place when there are so different containment strategies and so different situations in all of those different countries. So I'm realistic. I'm not pessimistic, and yeah, maybe we get surprised, but to be honest, I don't think so. I don't think we'll see any um, age group or recreational sports big events until the end of this year, maybe.
The reason we're here is to talk about yourself and your background. So you've been cycling since, let me get this right, you were about 14. Was that right? Is that the first thing you took up?
Yes, exactly. That was cycling. And I recall very, very vividly, it must have been in June or July, I think July 1987, 1987, when the Tour de France started with the Grand Départ in West Berlin. And I went there with my dad, and that was the first time I saw a bike race, and it was the team time trial. So as West Berlin was confined with that wall, there weren't those long over A to B stages, but there was one stage which was of course the team time trial. And I stood there, and I actually sometimes I googled it on YouTube, and I found the exact video of it, that exact time at that day where I started cycling. And of course, all the guys were flying by with the colorful kits and the disc wheels, and it was really on with high speeds. So how can you not be intrigued by that, right? So that's and I said I want to do that. So I got from my dad. He bought me like a 61 centimeter frame Peugeot bike back in the day, and that was way too big. But then I got a very nice Colnago, which I bought secondhand, or my dad actually, of course, bought secondhand, and it was a red one, and with Campagnolo, yeah, and still with outside shifting and outside brake cables and clips, and so no clipless pedals, anything like that. And yeah, then the first race was actually, yeah, I recall it was on in October also, uh, Berlin State Championships individual time trial. I think it was 10K or 8K, I don't know. So it was up the Kronprinzessenweg, and yeah, I finished second on my very first race as a time trial. And just last year, one of the very few events I was able to do was actually a similar event, similar distance, and it was also a time trial. And I finished now in the Masters. I finished third. So for me, that's that's kind of coming full circle with the very beginning and where I am right now.
That's consistency for you. Yeah, very good, very good. And you obviously got a passion for cycling as well. And do you watch it all at the moment? Well, obviously there's not a great deal that's been on recently, but the UAE tour's just started, hasn't it? Do you watch? Are you a big cycling fan?
Yeah, well, definitely. So this is my passion, which has stuck with me since the very beginning. And yes, even to the extent that if there was any race, even some third or fourth category race or local race, of course I try to watch it. And of course it's very nice actually to look at those, to spectate with the big TV coverages of the Grand Tours, but also the classics. So I actually really like the watching the classics. So I follow everything. I follow everything online and on television. And when if you ever when you've ever been to the Tour de France, and as I've been there many times, it's always something very, very special. I've just had the opportunity to, well, just a couple of years ago to go there with my wife and my son up to Alpe d'Huez. And yeah, there were certain decisions I had to make earlier on, whether to pursue this cycling endeavor further or to get a real job and earn real money. And yeah, I made a decision, but maybe doubted it for a decade or two. But at the end, yeah, it was the best. It was the best thing after all. And I'm still following cycling, and I'm still in love with it. And I think I will always be. And hopefully, I can pass some of that passion on, because it's a sport that, despite not always the strongest coming out up front, it's something that rewards hard work and tactics, and it's not only the one who's the strongest wins, as I said, and that's something that's very yeah, it's maybe also a metaphor for life, right? So if you crash, you get up, you hop on your bike again, you just get going, right? So it goes up and down, but it's always forward, right, left, right. That's what you get from cycling. I don't think you get from many other sports. I don't say any other, but many other sports. That's unique. That's why I love it.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same with you. I mean, I've been watching and cycling for a long time. Not in your league, but watching it from a kid. Watching the likes of Sean Kelly and Stephen Roach and Robert Miller. They were my heroes when I was growing up. Yeah, and I just still the same. Still love it. Like you, dipped out a little bit as work took over, but yeah, just I still love it. It's one of my passions. I watch everything. So when you got into cycling, was it track cycling mainly? Or because I noticed in your email you put you did cyclocross and pursuit. So how did it all mix together, your achievements?
Yeah, well, as you start off, excuse me, you do everything. So you start off on the road, and then you mix in some cyclocross in the winter time. And if you're lucky, you can go on the track. We in Berlin, we had an outdoor track, which was well, right now I think there's a furniture outlet there, so this track is no more. So it was. I did most of the training outdoors, of course. So on the road, meaning outdoors, there was no indoor training like you know it right now. So yes, so we started off with just regular riding and training, and I had this one loop where you would always go in the afternoon with all the big stars, with Mike Kluge being just, I think he was world champion at that time, of course, and you always try to go a little bit more distance with those guys, and you would admire them. And then I would go to the track. So we would have like cup races on Wednesday on the track, and then on Thursday you would have a cup race on a Berlin local cup on the road. So you have 2 or 3 races on Wednesday, and then you have one road race or a crit on Thursday. Then you recover, and then you have a race on Saturday and Sunday. At that time, you had a lot of races. Even in Berlin, you had the same course, but then Saturday a little bit shorter and Sunday a little bit longer. So, and that mix, I think, makes, if you started early on, makes for a good overall bike handling and good overall tactical skills. And people always say, yeah, for good bike handling, you have to go to the cyclocross or mountain bike or something like that. But actually, I think track is also true, because it's not as easy as it seems to go around the track. It is when you're used to it, and you have fixed gear and everything. So that also makes for very good bike handling, because the speeds are generally higher, and there's more tactics. So you don't think so much about how you move your bike, but more about the dynamic of the pack. And you learn to gauge distances and speeds a little bit better, I think. So yeah, that's how this all started, and then this slowly developed into a love or speciality, or being specialist for 4,000-meter pursuit, which then ended, well, no, not ended, but being in Berlin at that time, and shortly after the reunification, you had like really high caliber guys come over. So, and I recall finishing second to Guido Fulst in 1992, and I think 6 weeks later I got lapped. Yeah, But it was the final though. So back in the day, the pursuit was a real tournament. So it's not like 2 races as it is right now. So you have to do like heats and qualifying and so on. But anyway, so he went on becoming Olympic champion in Barcelona in the 4,000-meter team pursuit. And yeah, I was still riding in Berlin-Schöneberg.
But still, to be up in that company at that time must have been quite satisfying.
Yeah, yes, and you see that you always know those guys are really on another level. And yes, but as I said, if I made the decision to not go a certain route and not do certain things and to pursue a real job or a different career rather, and that's what I did, and yeah, so but yeah, that's what I did right back in the day.
That's good. I mean, as long as you can look back and think, yeah, I did what I did, but I feel comfortable with it now. That's all you can hope for, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the most important thing. And also, maybe if I would have done something different or made a different decision, I wouldn't have been riding now or doing in the multi-sports as an age grouper. So that's also a big takeaway, because if it's your job, you might get fed up with it, and I'm not.
But I mean, that the thing is, you've done it for so long. Like me, it just becomes a lifestyle, doesn't it? What would you've done it all your life. So what would you do? Somebody took it away from you tomorrow.
uh, Please don't. Yeah, well, so here's the thing. So my way of training is I'm like a commute world champion. And so my way to or my distance to work is about direct way maybe 22 25 kilometers, and I can extend it up a little bit like 30 if I go on narrow or quieter roads. So I train if I go to the office and go back to the office. So I have to get there anyways, right? So if I take the train or some other mode of transportation, I would have this hour and a half anyway. So I can use this as my commute getting to work when there's office time again, and also putting in some intervals. So please don't take the cycling away. And it's also, in order to do so, you have to be not injured, so you have to be healthy. So first and foremost is to make not have it taken away from you, but also be prepared that you don't take it away from you yourself, in order while by being healthy, by keeping healthy, by doing the right things, not overdoing it, right? Because then you can pursue it for as long as you want, hopefully, as if everything plays out the way you want it. So I would actually struggle if someone would say you're not riding anymore. So yeah, it's not also it's a lifestyle. It's something that's embedded into myself. Yeah. So no, please don't take it away.
You've got to give yourself the best chance. It's a long game, isn't it? This life lark, hopefully, and you've got to give yourself the best chance of surviving and having quality of life down the line, not just longevity. Yeah. So you've taken that strong bike background into triathlon. So how did the whole triathlon come about? How did you find multisport?
Yeah, so I always looked a little bit outside of the cycling box, and I think it was Dirk Aschmoneit back in the day, a German guy who is known, I think, as the German Rambo, and outside of Germany, especially in the States, and that was something where I said, yeah, so running and swimming, those guys must be the toughest because they're doing all of those three endurance disciplines, and of course it was the Iron War in 1989, where Mark Allen and Dave Scott, they were battling it out in Kona, and that was something that where you have those certain moments, they're like romantically blurred. Even today, you watch them on TV and you want to say, this is what I want to do. This is like the pinnacle of endurance sports. So I looked around a little bit, and of course there were a lot of triathlons going on back in the day, and especially also in the Berlin area. So that's why where I always tried to. I was always a little bit hesitant because of the pure bike racing, which then I would of course had to sacrifice for that, which I eventually then did on and off, love so to speak. But that was where I first looked into triathlon and multi-sports, and yeah, nothing really crazy, but I pictured myself doing this eventually one day.
Yeah. Just going back then to your first, what was your first triathlon? I know you sort of like glossed over that aspect of it. So what did you start? How did you? A bit more detail. How you got into triathlon in the first place? Who you said obviously you knew about it and you knew all these icons, but you yourself, did you go to a club, or was it friends that you knew were involved? How did that come about?
Yeah, that was I think in 1990 or something like that, 1991 or so, 1993 I guess. It was an Olympic distance, and that was at the Havel Chaussee in the Havel, which is a stream here in Berlin, and you ride next to it on your bike rides, on your training, so you know it and you know the run course. I actually borrowed a sleeveless wetsuit from a friend of mine from a local triathlon club, and yeah, it was horrible. The swim was horrible. I was breaststroking all the time because I have no technique. I'd also say I don't have it right now, and even lost it now for the due to lockdown. But anyways, so no, blame it all on the lockdown, right? No, so the swimming was of course bad, and the bike was good, but it's a little bit different to ride after swimming, especially when it takes a lot out of you because you lack the technique. And then, of course, it was the 10K run, which is also different when you run off of the bike. And of course, I didn't do any sort of transition training or any sort of brick workouts or even any structured training. And that was also something I really liked, is the the thing of just finishing it, not looking at any times or looking at results rather than finishing the event. Yeah, so I can vividly recall that one, and also a little sprint triathlon, which was also in that area. So these were my first endeavors in multi-sports, which were also easy to combine with the cycling, still keeping up cycling at the time. Yeah, but swimming, I don't know. It's if you don't if you don't learn it from like 8 or 6 years or 5 years old, if you pick it up late like I did, I don't think, unless you put like really, really a lot of effort and time into that, it's hard to get any, like not any good, but real good into it. Yeah, but that was my first triathlon.
Yeah, totally agree. Because it's such a technical sport, isn't it? Let's face it. So that was your swim part of it. Obviously, you got your bike nailed because of your history. How did you find the run when you started? Had you done any running previously before your triathlon, or was that not obviously not as much of an effort as the swim was?
And that wasn't as bad, and it's not as technical. People think that running is not technical, but it actually is. But that was not that big challenge. It was getting good at it, or better is a challenge, but just doing it, because you don't drown if you stop running, but if you stop swimming, you go under, right? No, but honestly, so I did the first marathon I did in 1993, I think, or 94, just prior to my first, well, not prior, but 3 years later, I think I did my first long distance triathlon, which was at the time Ironman Roth, which was the Ironman Europe. And yeah, so I knew how to run. I know how running felt, and I also knew that if I would want to get any good at it, I would have to practice it. Maybe also lose a little bit of weight, because as a cyclist or pursuit cyclist, you have a little bit. Uh, you can afford to have to be a little bit heavier, but running translated better off of the cycling than the swimming. The swimming did, for sure. So running wasn't that big of a deal, and right now it's turned into one of my, yeah, also I think second biggest passion.
So you've done Ironman Roth.
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, it's amazing, and it still is, and that's the beauty of it. It's if if anyone asks me where should I do my first long distance triathlon, and people would say, yeah, you have to if you don't want to have this Ironman brand on it, go to Roth, yeah, because it's the whole area of Hilpoltstein and Franken, they are really behind that, and they live this. And the course, it has changed a little bit, but back in 1979, 1997. That was a year when Luc van Lierde, actually, I remember, he set the world record, 7:51, and I was just going out. I was into the final marathon, I think 5K or something, or 10K, and he was already going back into the finish line, and I think he ran the last 10K in 34 minutes or something, which was unheard of at the time. And I always remember that, so that was really crazy. And yes, and then I did it 10 years later. Yeah, 2007. Yeah, 2007. I did my second long course, I guess. Yeah, I think so. It was also in Roth because I wanted to go back there because that was just the atmosphere and everything about it, which is really really great. So Challenge Roth as it is right now is one of the best events ever. If you go up Solar Berg and you saw the pictures probably, that's something you will never forget. And it's like going up the Tour de France, Alpe d'Huez is like 10 lines deep or 5 lines deep, and you get goosebumps. And yeah, and people say, is this better than Hawaii? I don't know. So I was lucky enough to have experienced both. And in 2010 I finished Ironman Hawaii, and I've been back then. 2000. My wife, she finished 3 times, and I think 2018 was the last time we were back there, and it has changed. And yes, it's tough, and it's the pinnacle of our sports. Everyone wants to be there and to have competed it. And if anyone asks you about triathlon, they immediately, well, at the one hand they say that's the one with the shooting, right? And then they ask you, so Ironman Hawaii, did you do that? And yeah, so these are the two things. But Roth is more. It's if you go there and you haven't experienced it, if you haven't fallen in love or been intrigued with it, I think for some people the Ironman Roth could be what the Tour de France has been for me. So like a Kinley, like a starter for all that. And I've been there not only to watch, to compete or to take part, but also to watch. So it's also a fun event to watch. Yeah, and my wife, she did too in 2000. I think she also did it twice. 2014, just after the birth of her first son, she won her age group also became national champion there, and on the same course. So Ironman Roth or Challenge Roth, it's only I can say thumbs up.
You pass the baton over onto your wife to to carry on, which is fantastic. You know, as a family, you know, that's just one. It's great. It's great for you both. But two, it's also fantastic for your kids seeing this, living in this environment, watching mum and dad do these things, because it's going to, you know, hopefully it'll, and it usually does, doesn't it? It transfers over to the kids and they become all encompassed in it as well.
Yes, it does. Even though I sometimes don't know if this is necessarily a good thing, but the kids do what they look up to their parents, and they try to emulate you, right? So he's on the big one, he's on Swift even, right? And he did his first little run in 2016 at the Ironman Arizona when he was 3.5 years or 4 years old. And even in Kona, he did this little kicky dip and dash 1 mile run in 35 degrees Celsius, so which is also hard for a small guy, but he loved that, and we're trying to show him all of the sports. He plays soccer right now, football, of course. Sorry, not soccer, football, and we try to show him different sports. And all the kids, at the end of the day, can do what they want. But if they're moving outside, yes, it's healthy, and you must not put any pressure on them. But it definitely does translate over, and I have to keep fit in order to keep up with him. So it's not only an age group race, but it's also an age group race for yourself.
So how did you get into the whole age group setup? No, by racing in the age group setup.
Yeah, well, first of all, by simply getting older. I don't know, but here's the thing. So yeah, you if you in multi-sport with the German Federation, the way it works is you can apply, and there's a point system in place where you accumulate points, and they are based on or ranked to, I think it's state championships, regional championships, and then European nationals, Europeans, and world championships. And if you are within a certain top 10 or top 20, and then you have enough points, they get ranked. And if you have they have a certain amount of slots for each event, and if you happen to be in that area within those points, or if you're a national champion, you can go to the championship. And I wanted to try out for the cross triathlon, the Xterra Worlds, which I think I finished 11th or something in my age group always. And then, of course, the long course duathlon, and you in Zofingen, which is my goal still. And so you have to just accumulate all the points. And but usually Germany has or few enough or enough slots, or not that many people that want to go, at least for duathlon, so that it is pretty safe that you actually get a slot on the age group team. Yeah.
Coaching. Do you self-coach yourself with all your experience that you've got? Are you still part of a club, or have you got a coach?
Yeah, well, I'm part of a club. It's the A3K in Berlin, which stands for Ausdauer Dreikampf, so Endurance 3 Disciplines Cup. I actually call it A2K because I don't swim, and I actually pay less for the club because I don't use the swimming times. But to answer your question, I'm self-coached. I've had a coach for when cycling, of course, but for triathlon, I had a coach, I think, for one season, and that doesn't really work out because it's always highly dependent on the time availability. And honestly, right now, I know how I feel, and I know the basics. And sometimes, if there is something on the schedule which says you have to do certain intervals or no intervals, and you feel differently, I tend to err on the side of my feeling, and also err on the side of, when in doubt, rest, because sometimes it's always a fine line, right? So sometimes you have to do certain sessions fatigued because that's part of the game. But some people don't know when or if you less experienced athletes don't know when there's the difference between that pain, you better sit out and wait and relax and recover, and the sort of feeling when you have to push through it. And that's something a coach cannot give me personally, and unless you're living with me 24/7, which, and as a result, I know when I prepare my wife, or when we prepare together for a big event, I can give the best advice rather than just looking at a pre-filled training plan. But that's just me. For other people, that works. But with I always look back on all of my history and into my own body, and then it always gives me most of the time it gives me the best answer.
Like you say, with all the experience that you've got, and you've been doing this a long time, so, and don't you, how it all fits in and what works best for you. That makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yes, and it also changes within the time span of your life, sporting life and career. So if you've been doing this for like 3 decades, you don't have to, and you also cannot pile on that loads of intensity every time, every time, every time. And you don't have to, because you have a lot of memory and a lot of structural adaptations that have taken place. So you only play with the biochemistry, and therefore you don't have to put in that big of an effort in order to achieve a certain level of fitness. If you've did it one time, or well, so it's multiple times in your life before that, but you can only keep it for as long. So if you peak, you can peak for 10 days, 2 weeks, and when I was younger, I could peak for like 4 weeks. right? So that's not possible anymore. So my goal right now is to actually maintaining is like winning, because if I maintain my, let's say, let's put it on like an FTP or some number, some threshold thing, I can do the same, reproduce the same numbers as I could for like a year ago, 2 years ago. I would still be making gains, right? Because consistency is yet again the name of the game. So you strive to hold within a certain corridor of fitness, and if you can maintain that for long years, that's basically it. So, but just don't expect big jumps back in at the back end of your career. You can still, but they will come at a cost, and they won't be sustainable for a long amount of time. So it's about how far do you drop, right? So if you drop to a good level, a nice comfortable level, which is still high, well, mission accomplished.
It's interesting because you're the second person within a matter of weeks who's come up and said, I'm 53. And he's saying, well, as you're getting older, as long as you can sustain where you're at, that's all you need to do, because everybody else hopefully will be going down, but you're still being able to push that same power, or you still be able to run the 5K at the same pace. And as you get older, if you can keep doing that.
Yeah, and to be honest, it becomes more struggle. So the challenge right now is to find the time. So if some people or some athletes or have the challenge of finding motivation, for me and for my family and my wife especially, so there's not the challenge of being motivated, it's rather the challenge of finding the time to do so, right? And at the other end of the spectrum, having the kids, I think they prevented us, or me certainly, from overtraining, because I simply don't have the time to put like back-to-back hard sessions. Well, I can do hard sessions, right? But hard and long sessions back to back to back to back, which then would burn you out. So you get burned out differently if you have kids, right? But the lack of time, I would say, made me a better athlete uh, in the last decade than training more. So if people say train smarter, not harder, that's always I don't really like that. But training smart does not necessarily mean not train hard, but you know what I mean. So you don't necessarily have to put on those big volumes, right? So, and if you do it at a certain time where you need to, and not just because you can.
So, next question then is, what's your favourite piece of kit and why?
Favorite piece of kit. Well, yeah, well, of course it has to be. Well, I would say my well, it's twofold. So my road bike, because it's a Kenda Synapse from 2000, currently from 2013, and it's just perfect because it just fits me so well. I can stay on it for hours, and it has all the right little tweaks, like being one by system and tubeless and all these things where I don't think about it, and it's just very reliable and fast. And if I can push the pedals harder, it goes even faster. That does not make it a good piece, my favorite piece of kit, but it's still something I go back to and I can rely on. So that's something. Shoes and stuff, I don't know, because you change them so often, and with new technologies come along. Not saying that it's not the same with bikes, but just recently, so with all the running shoes, I don't know. But one thing comes to my mind is a Gore-Tex jacket I got we were doing a photo shoot for Gore-Tex, and that was some windstopper. It's nothing fancy. It's just a windstopper on top, and then some fabric on the some jacket. I don't really know what it specifically is made of. Obviously Gore-Tex, but that's something I can run in all the time. I don't have to put a lot of layers underneath, and those things they just stick with you and onto you, literally sometimes. But no, so and it's not really fancy, and I also go by the the mantra of if you keep things long enough, they come back into fashion, right? So, but I would say this is well right now or in the winter and springtime. That's one of my go-to pieces of kit. So I would say, yeah, that's my favorite piece of kit right now. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your short-term and your long-term goals?
Yeah. Well, short-term goal would have to be to get back into the rhythm of commuting, com- commute training, and yeah, this is just as I said, maintaining, being able to have the time to maintain fitness, and the other long-term goal has to be I've now finished on the podium of the long distance triathlon in duathlon in Roth in Mann in Zofingen twice. So I'd have the silver medal and the bronze medal. So I have to go back there and get uh, the gold medal. So Anya, she has the gold medal from 2014. Yeah, so I want that too. And this is also running a fast marathon maybe, but this would be the one thing that matters most to me, to become the first in my age group, whatever that may be at the time in Powerman surfing.
Is that duathlon and what distance?
Correct. That's a duathlon. That's 10K run, 150 bike, and 30K run. Yeah, and this is, I think it's one of the toughest races or one of the hardest races, and yeah, being at the top step of this event in my age group, as I said, that's my long-term goal, and I'll put everything into achieving that.
Great to have a specific, clear goal, isn't it?
Yeah, makes it easier, right? Not that I would not do the things I do anyways, but certain sessions you just do because you know you want to win that thing, right? Or you want to have this certain result. And I said to my son, come on, so if I get that top spot in this event, I'll stop. Yeah, of course I won't stop, right? But then maybe it's not this desire which is not always not saying not healthy, but this is which drives you, right? So but also maybe if I don't achieve it ever, I will still have that drive to thrive for that, right? And to strive for that one, this certain goal, and makes it easier. Maybe I accomplish it, maybe I don't. I think I will, but it makes it easier, and it's always good to have something not right next door, but on the horizon, which keeps you going towards death.
Well, that's a great place to finish. Thank you ever so much for your time. Have you got anything?
Thanks for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. Have you got anything that you want to add? Do you want to tell people about your YouTube channel and anything else that you're currently on with?
So thanks for the opportunity. So yes, you can go on to YouTube, and you can Google Stephan Leuendorff with double F, and then I think my channel will come up. I also have the website, which is slowtwitch.de. So slowtwitch as the muscle fiber, and DE for Deutschland, Germany. And also Instagram, I think it's Leuendorf. And I also do a podcast with pro triathlete and my friend Christian Kramer. It's the Triathlete podcast. You can also look it up wherever you get podcasts. Probably it's next to the MGB podcast. You can just look it up. And thanks for the opportunity, Rich, again to point the people to my face.
It's available there for people to go and have a look and seek you out and see what you look like and what you're up to. So that's always good. Put a face to the name, and because obviously this is a podcast and we don't see what people look like generally until I put the photographs on Instagram and stuff like that. So that's the other thing you could do for me, is to send some of your favourite photos over so we can use it for the promo.
I will. For sure, I can send you some over. Yeah, so thanks for having me, and it was a real pleasure, and wish you all the best, and hopefully we see ourselves in real life sometimes on the road. Thanks.
Well, thanks again, Stefan. I really enjoyed that chat. Very knowledgeable and thoroughly nice man. Good luck with everything in the future, and hopefully we might be able to meet up at some point also in the future. Yeah, so thank you once again. So hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please leave us a message, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you listen to, and don't forget you can follow us on Instagram at amp_1967 and on Facebook at ampgb. You can also go across to our website, which is agegroupmultisportpodcast.buzzsprout.com. You'll find all the podcasts on there, and also we're on Twitter at Age Group Multisport Podcast. So lots of platforms to follow us on, and also if you want to get in touch and drop us an email, we're on agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com. So thank you once again for listening and taking the time out of your busy lives. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you next time. And don't forget, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.